What's up YouTube, Christo here, and I've got another collection video for you. This time I've got Minutemen and related artists, as well as Ween and Eyehategod, so kind of all over the spectrum on this one. First artist I'm going to look at, Minutemen. I've had considerably shorter time with them than with a lot of other punk rock bands of their time. I was a latecomer to them, and I really knew like virtually nothing about them until maybe like 2007, which I often refer to as like my new era of music, when I suddenly had high-speed internet. But I was in Indonesia, so I was kind of out of the loop and whatever. But anyways, that's kind of when I really started to digest them. Good friend of mine, American guy, got me into them as well. He has some direct connections to them, which are pretty cool also. So, let's do this one first, actually. This is Joy, a 3-song, 3-minute EP. Now, normally I wouldn't pick something up like this, only because, you know, I think this goes for about 10 or 15 Canadian dollars if you try to pick it up online. But I added it to an order, pre-existing order, and what kind of clinched it for me was that it is on a pretty rare clear pressing. It's okay. I'm not even gonna lie. I think I've listened to this once since I picked it up, but I did know it from way back in the day. But for 3 songs, 3 minutes, like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to call it like an amazing record or whatever. But I'm going to kind of contradict that and say that Paranoid Time, their first, I believe this is their first official release, and I believe also possibly the first ever record on SST. I could be wrong about that, but I think it is. I think this is like SST number 1 or something. I was looking for the number on here, but this is like a new modern pressing, so I didn't see anything. Maybe the early ones have it on here. I don't know. Let's have a look on the record itself. But either way, well, SST number 2. This is a 7-song, like under 10-minute hardcore punk album that is phenomenal, like amazing. This was the first time where I was like, you know what, I really like Minutemen. Some of their stuff, I have to be honest, I still can't really enjoy. The kind of artsy, jazzy, I don't know, poetic, freeform stuff that just doesn't really do it for me. This, though, is a pretty awesome early hardcore record, though. You can still pick it up pretty cheap. I think like under $10 Canadian. Just might have to pay a bit of shipping if you can't find it locally. But phenomenal record. What Makes a Man Start Fires. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest as well again. I think a lot of Minutemen records, they've got a lot of tracks, and they're really short. And a lot of their stuff, they have a few eras that sound really similar to each other. So What Makes a Man Start Fires, and the punchline, honestly, I find these to be similar styles, similar sounds, and I often mix up the tracks on these back and forth. However, I can say for sure that the opening track, Bob Dylan wrote propaganda songs on this, is such an awesome song. There's some really great tracks on both of these, but I'm not even going to get into it because I don't even remember which is on which. This is quite a modern pressing, I think even a current pressing. This is definitely older. Don't know when. A lot of SST records are really hard to date, but both of these are very good. Definitely my favorite era of Minutemen for sure. Some of you might have already spotted it here. This is widely regarded as their best album. I think they just put too much on here, and a lot of it has very different sounds. It's just all over the place in every aspect. This is their seminal Double Nickels on the Dime. And this also features by far their most well-known song, even for people who, like, I've never heard of the Minutemen, or I don't know the Minutemen, or I've heard of them, but I've never heard their music. You probably have. Their song Corona was used as the Jackass theme, which is funny because I knew the name Minutemen before Jackass existed. And I remember Jackass when it came out, and I loved the theme song, and it wasn't for, like, I don't know, 5 years later, maybe a little bit longer, that I realized that that was actually a Minutemen song, which was pretty cool. Corona is actually a pretty good song. They obviously just take a snippet from the intro or the verse, whatever, but it's okay. There's just so much on this. I don't know, there's like 40 tracks on this record, and a lot of it is kind of getting into like the jazzy, poetic stuff that I don't particularly like. It's not horrible by any stretch, but it's definitely not what I love from the Minutemen. Politics Time, that's a good song. This Ain't No Picnic, good track as well. It's good, I don't like it as much as other people do. Firehose, after D. Boone, the singer-guitarist of Minutemen, died very unexpectedly and very young. Firehose is basically what rose out of their ashes. Kind of a bad pun there, I didn't mean it actually, but I've heard several Firehose records. This is the only one I actually own, but Rage and Full On, I do prefer that. I think this one here, I was actually just listening to this the other night, and it's good. It's very eclectic, all over the place, and it's interesting because some tracks on here sound very modern and contemporary to today, and others sound horribly, horribly dated. This is from 91, I believe. Yeah, 91, and I think this is an original pressing. And yeah, it's interesting because some stuff sounds like 80s, and other stuff sounds like it could be released today. And they've got stuff that's like, I don't know, ska, reggae sounding. You've got stuff that's, you know, quite heavy sounding. So it's kind of all over the place, which kind of shows, you know, what Minutemen's spectrum was, you know, from the early Paranoid time up to like Three-Way Tie for Last. Kind of, you know, shows their diversity and whatnot. This I think is an excellent forgotten 90s record, or maybe not even forgotten, if I can even say that, but maybe just undiscovered. This is M.I.T.Y, the bass player from Minutemen. His, I want to say first solo record, I could be wrong, Ball Hog or Tugboat. And this is just like a who's who of 90s music. I'm actually going to get this out because it does have colored vinyl. So on the back here, it's kind of like a wrestling billing, and it lists all the artists that appear on the album. So listen to this. This is M.I.T.Y in 1995, who was pretty much unheard of in a mainstream sense. We have Frank Black, we have Flea, Adam Horowitz, Beastie Boys, Dave Grohl, Kurt and Chris Kirkwood, Meat Puppets. We've got Thurston Moore, Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, of course, Lee Ronaldo from Sonic Youth. We've got Pat Smear from The Germs. We have who else? Evan Dando, Lemonheads. Mike D, also from the Beastie Boys. And Jay Mascis, and, you know, just on and on. Henry Rollins, and yeah, there's lots more. So it's interesting because this, I was really into music in the 90s, into indie music. This is on a pretty accessible record label, Sony, and I didn't even know this until about 2002 when I heard a friend of mine play it in his car, and I loved it. Gatefold. And it is on colored vinyl. Oh, I should change these out. I usually change out custom sleeves because I don't want them to get damaged. Translucent blue. The other disc is like that as well, so I'm not going to bother getting it out because you can just imagine what it looks like. But I'm going to change that cover out, so I'll put it over there. Ween, an interesting band, and I'm going to have to kind of step on eggshells here. They have a very, very devout, very rabid fan base. My introduction to Ween was Chocolate and Cheese in like the mid-90s when it came out. And I actually liked the single Freedom of 76, I want to say. 76, 79, one of those. And I liked it, and then I heard the record, and I was like, man, this is just too weird. It's all over the place. I don't dig it. You know, I was into like Nirvana, Melvins, Ministry, things like that. I've got a fruit fly buzzing around here. There we go. And I just couldn't get into it. So for a really long time, they were just totally off the radar for me. Like, I just couldn't get into them. Then again, 2007, Magic 2007, internet comes along, high-speed internet comes along for me, and I got into their discography, and I found some stuff that I really, really liked. The Mollusc, this is, I'd say, my second favorite Ween album. Very good. It is a, like, a theme record, you know, talking about, you know, the sea and nautical subject matter. I think there are a few tracks on here that are really, really solid. And even though they do kind of keep that, like, sea theme, they do go from, like, kind of, I'll be your Johnny on the spot, like, kind of like electronic punk rock, to something like, oh, Mutilated Lips. Oh, that's such an amazing song. Like, I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, which is kind of like, you know, an old-timey, like, you know, sea song, kind of. You'd imagine, like, a bunch of old sailors singing. Yeah, Mutilated Lips, man, I forgot about that. That's a beautiful, beautiful song. But yeah, there's some really great tracks on this. I really like this. I think this is regarded as one of their more acclaimed albums, and I definitely agree with that. La Cucaracha, I picked this up quite recently. I was very fortunate to find this for sale locally, new for a very reasonable price. Some of Ween's records that have not been pressed in a while are very, very highly sought after. This is a very eclectic album also. It's just all over the place. Kind of like I said with Minutemen, it goes from like reggae or ska to like metal to punk. It's just like all over the place. I've literally only listened to this once. It's from 2007, so this probably came out just when I was re-entering the realm of Ween. So I probably didn't even digest this. It's okay. I don't think I'll see myself falling in love with it, but it's okay. More recent Ween release, although they haven't released a studio album in a long time. This very well could be their last studio album. Could be wrong on that, but if not, this is one of their last studio albums. Godween Satan. Now, this was one of their early studio albums that they just recently released a live full album version that is also quite early. I think it was recorded in like 2000-ish or something. 2001. And this is white vinyl. It's still actually quite easy to find. I grabbed this really quickly. I didn't even know it was released, and I grabbed a copy because I know limited edition Ween stuff sells very, very quickly. Like I mentioned, their hardcore cult following. I can't say it's great. I think I do prefer the studio version. It's kind of a bland performance in my opinion. Nice heavyweight as well on there. It's okay, but this is it. This is it. This is what just keeps me in love with Ween. I have to say there's a lot of Ween that I just truly don't like. Full albums of theirs that I just have no interest in. But this, the pod, this is just something like I've never heard before. This is early or mid 90s. 91, wow, I can't even believe that. And I didn't know about this when I heard Chocolate and Cheese. I didn't know they sounded like this. So it wasn't until years and years later when I finally started listening to their discography and I heard this, I was like, what is this? This is strange stuff. This is on clear vinyl. A Record Store Day releasing that is quite desirable now. Which is kind of, like I said, why I'm surprised that God, Ween, Satan isn't off the shelves already, but I think this was pressed much more limited for Record Store Day. What a great record. I don't even know. I could probably talk about this record alone for 10 minutes. So I'm just going to say, if you like lo-fi, if you like indie, if you like experimental music, this is an absolute 100% must. Like I said, there's a lot of Ween stuff that I just have no interest in, but this is amazing. This is just in a whole other realm. Now, Eyehategod. Love these guys. I got into them about 20 years ago, maybe a bit less than 20 years ago, on CBC's radio, Brave New Waves. It's now gone. It's off the air. But they used to basically play music that was really obscure, that people in that day and age, like in the early internet era, mass internet era age, might not have had access to, especially where I lived. So I relied on that a lot to pick up some new music, new bands, and I found some really cool stuff. One of my favorites ever, though, Eyehategod. Now, an interesting thing with me and Eyehategod, you know what, I'm going to save that one for last. I've been listening to them for a really long time, and only in the last couple years, when I've been able to pick up their records, have I ever officially owned an Eyehategod album. Before that, I was all like bootlegs and MP3s and stuff. But now I actually own some of their records, and I'm trying to piece together what they are and what their sound is, because I would literally just have like 100 Eyehategod songs and just skip through them. I don't remember what album they're from. I don't remember a lot of the titles, so I'm kind of getting into that now. In the Name of Suffering, some nudity on the cover of that, but I believe this is their first record, and yeah, there's some pretty awesome stuff on here. If you're not familiar with Eyehategod, their name probably sums up their sound. They're heavy, they're screechy, they're crunchy, they're distorted, just hateful, nihilistic lyrics. A band I am just absolutely in love with. I think they're amazing. One of my all-time favorite metal bands. They're considered sludge, I think, usually. They're from the NOLA scene, New Orleans, Louisiana scene that has seen a lot of prominent sludge metal bands. Take Is Needed for Pain, Blank, Shoplift, two of the best they've ever done. Really great record. All of these black pressing, so I'm not going to get into them. Save that. Dope Sick. This one I have been listening to more recently, so I'm a little bit more familiar with it. Great record. Great record. Possibly my favorite, but it's hard to tell. This one, Confederacy of Ruined Lives. This is on colored vinyl. I thought it was gatefold, but it is not. So it's kind of like a frosty clear with green, white, and black splatter. Very good album. They all are, honestly. They never released a crappy album. And this is their kind of comeback record. Their Eyehategod self-titled. I think this is from 2014. 2014-ish, let's say. The band broke up for a while. Legal troubles. Mike Williams, the lead singer, Williams, whatever it is, he was in jail for, I believe, heroin possession. He actually stood in for Seth Putnam from Anal Cunt while he was recovering from a heart attack or a crack overdose or something. And yeah, they went back to form Eyehategod. I honestly have not even listened to this yet. I don't know how true this lineup is to their early days or their most celebrated days, but it is good. I've listened to the MP3s, but I've actually not listened to the record yet. Just a great, man. If you want some like brutal sludge metal, you know, you can't go wrong with them. Anyways, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more collection videos, and I'll see you again soon.